anywhere that has the internet at WRFL.FM. And also, if you like to watch your radio, you can do that. We make that available to you. Just go to my profile, Mick Jeffries, on Facebook. And you can also go to trivialthursdays.com for all the information on upcoming guests and all that kind of stuff. We just heard Coming Down. That was Ben Salih from his 2016 record InfoWars. Congrats to Ben, who will be, I believe, making his debut at the Big Ears Festival now in its 10th year in Knoxville next weekend. So we wanted to take a little bit to celebrate that and celebrate Kentuckians who are involved in Big Ears this year. I'm sure there's way more than I know, but I have at least got, I'm delighted to have Rachel Grimes on the line here. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Mick. So good to see you.
For a minute, I'm not sure. Are those CDs behind you? Because if they are, yes, it may be too late to sell them.
They're not going to be sold. They are listened to. They're a treasure for me.
All right.
I got a bunch of LPs and cassettes I even pull out on the weekends.
Now I've got those cassettes. Now that's good. That's good.
Nothing like an old mixtape.
I know, right? Let's see. So it's so good to see you, and we don't get to talk very often, but you're some of that is because you're just out doing cool stuff, I think, and congratulations on that. You're based in Louisville still, right?
Well, I'm a little north of Louisville, but yes, I live out in the countryside now, but Louisville's still my extended hometown.
Are you telling me that you live in Indiana, Rachel?
No, not a Hoosier.
Well, north of Louisville, I mean.
Well, upriver, basically, Carroll County.
I was hoping that maybe you were going to say you live. I used to love to tell my daughter that I wanted to live in that little, there's like this little shanty shack that's on top of one of the many bridges in Louisville. It sits right in the middle. And from I-64, you can see it.
12th Street. It's so awesome.
I love that. I always say, I tell my family I'm going to live there one day. They don't believe me. So let's see. Let's see, just a little quick background. I mean, I have been a fan for a while. I think my fandom of what you do may have begun with songs for Egon Schiele with Rachel's, which I'd like to point out that I know that the band is not named after you. Is that right?
It's correct. It was not.
Okay.
Named after the replicant Rachel from the Ridley Scott movie.
Blade Runner. From Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
I didn't know that. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Now I was always fascinated, and I've always been fascinated by the trajectory of at least my version of this Louisville music scene that started out with a core group of musicians who loved to play really, really loud, and then they decided they wanted to play really, really soft.
Yep. Or maybe going back and forth,
Going back and forth. Yeah.
Dynamic shifts.
Loud, soft, loud. Now, you were sort of fundamental in that scene. I don't want to dwell on that stuff too much, but what came first for you, the sort of local music scene or the pedagogy, if that's the right word, of piano?
Well, really what came first for me was learning music through my ears, in my family, because I was a really, really little kid when my dad played piano, my grandmother, and a lot of my family members sang. So, I was just immersed in music from the get-go. So I really sort of learned music or experienced it the most in person, when I was little. And then I started getting records and eventually, I did take piano lessons, and then I joined my first band when I was 15, and that was Lemonade Hayride. We did play a few Lexington gigs way back in the day, and I think we did something at RFL way back then. I just can't remember, but we did something. I don't know if it was in studio interview or if there was like even a song played. That was a while ago. So, once I got my taste of being in a band, I mean, gosh, so that led to another band called Hula Hoop. And then while I was in Hula Hoop, I started making music with some friends from that scene who Jason Noble was in Rodan, which was one of those louder bands. But we kind of, and Hula Hoop was a fairly loud band, but we discovered we really liked this kind of more cinematic, moody instrumental music. And so we got together and started writing songs like that. And that was sort of one of the beginnings of Rachel's.
Yeah. Thanks for that background. I appreciate that. I remember I saw Rachel several times, and one time at the what's the community center in Louisville called?
Clifton Center.
Yeah, the Clifton Center. And one of my things that you probably don't get to hear that much about was one of my favorite fondnesses of the show was Jason's joke telling to the audience.
Yes. Maybe slightly blue jokes. I don't know. Depends on the audience,
or maybe not that funny jokes also, or but he seemed to revel in that. He seemed to love that actually. So
well, it was cut through from the seriousness of what we were doing up there with the film and music.
Well, it's fun to see it. I love seeing Louisville bands in Louisville because of Louisville audiences habit of kind of giving you guys a hard time, really. At least, I mean, it's the audience is supportive in the most antagonistic way. I felt that may just been my experience. But Rachel, let's talk about Big Ears. You're returning to Big Ears, right?
Yes. So excited to get back. I've been I was trying to think. I think I've played 6. This will be my 6th, although I'm not actually performing, but my music's getting performed at the Bijou Theater, the Blue Hour, which is a work for string orchestra and mezzo soprano. So it's being performed by one of our composers, Sharon Nova, and the Knoxville Symphony Orchestra in the beautiful Bijou Theater. So I will be there to cheer them on. And I think we're going to do a little composer conversation earlier in the day. That's one of the things that Big Ears likes to do, is kind of, go behind the scenes and have people sit down with the audience in small rooms and talk about their work. There's so much to do at Big Ears. It's crazy. There's so much amazing music and opportunities to mingle with people. It's a really wonderful festival.
Really, the dirty trick that I was pulling on you, Rachel Grimes, by having you be on the show, is I was going to have you try to explain Big Ears, because I'm not sure that I can. And I love Big Ears. I can't wait for this year. I loved it last year. But people ask about it.
It is an incredible festival, and I am not really much of a festival goer. And that's because I'm kind of I don't really crave being in giant, loud crowds and not being able to hear the music. And Big Ears is really the opposite of that. It's focused on the experience, both for the listeners in terms of the quality of the venues and the sound, but also the experience for the musicians. The musicians are treated well, and they're given the opportunities in these great venues. And while the schedule's pretty hefty these days, like you're always going to miss some things you want to see because there's conflicts in that schedule, it's still lovingly put together and curated from the standpoint that there is no genre that is, or any trend that is actually dictating what's going to be a part of this festival. It's really an enormous mix of types of music and artists from all different points in their careers. This year Ashley Capps, the owner and creator of the festival, is honoring John Zorn's 70th birthday. So there's all kinds of John Zorn's music being presented, from choral works to organ works to, just giant pieces. I mean, it's an enormous tribute to John Zorn. So
listen, I found myself wondering if Ashley went to Big Ears last year, because I feel like last year was a giant tribute to John Zorn, who I love.
Well, I know. I think it's part 2. I didn't go last year, so I can't speak to it directly, but Ashley is always there. He dips in and out of as many shows as he can get to. I can't imagine what it's like to put this whole thing together.
Well, as you said, it's a lot of your sentiment is mine shared. I meant to go to Big Ears for years. I finally went last year, and it's just my happy place. It's absolutely my happy place. I'm not a festival person either. It all takes place in, I think, what they call the Arts District of Knoxville, which led me
Mhm.
to the new tourism tagline for Knoxville, which is Knoxville. Who knew? Um, it's
They'd
it's
probably go for that.
incredible. Yeah, it's just
It's
amazing. And so all
lovely.
these
It's
venues
really
that
lovely.
you've got big
Mhm.
venues from like the Tennessean Theater to your piece is being performed at the Bijou, and
Mhm.
which is a more the size of say the Kentucky Theater here in Lexington, or I'm not sure what a parallel
Yeah.
would be in Louisville. Also, hats off to you for you said you're not performing, but your music is being performed, and I feel like
Mhm.
that's the way John Zorn was last year. So I feel like you've really made it. You make it when
Woohoo!
you don't get to play your own music. Is you just sit back and watch other people play it.
Yeah, it's an honor. It's a great honor. And it is a
Now,
really great time. Yeah, there's music in like the old train depots. It's really it's very, very unique. And I
there's
think
several
that it's definitely
churches.
time we got, yes, churches and art spaces, art museums. Some are in like old pubs. There's a new venue this year, which sounds like kind of a larger a venue for, like Calexico and Andrew Bird are playing there.
Hmm. And then
And
there's
the
and then
civic
there's the
component.
church that I love so much, the St.
Mhm.
John's, the little cathedral church where I found
Yes.
out that I was absolutely crazy about sort of super long form kind of drone type of music, like Callie
Mm,
Malone will be
okay.
playing, and last year James
Yes.
McVinney performed, and it seems like they were all offering alms to the gospel of Philip Glass, which was okay with me. Um,
Mhm.
so now Rachel Grimes is here with us, and Rachel, so this is a complicated, well, when I say complicated, the song cycle, the Blue Hour, when I say complicated, all I mean is this is a collaboration between 5 people, right? Carolyn Shaw, who I saw last year, yourself, Angelica Negron, Sharonova, and Sarah Kirkland Snyder. And
Right.
these are all, you explain it because I'm not sure I understand what's going on here, but I like the way it sounds.
Great. Well, it's a deep collaboration. Those 5 composers were commissioned by the string orchestra, A Far Cry. They're housed in Boston. We were invited to create a piece for them, together with our 5 composer selves, but also with them. They really wanted to be part of creating this work, and they wanted the work to be for a singer with a string orchestra. And we all agreed that having the libretto come from a living American poet would be ideal. So we set out to find out who that would be, and we discovered the work of Carolyn Forche. Her poem On Earth, which is a very long poem, struck me at the core, and it felt so musical and so dynamic and intimate and just sweeping the first few times I read through it. And we realized right quick, if we were going to use it, we had to edit it. So long story short is the composers had a wonderful talk with Carolyn on the phone, and she gave us her blessing to excerpt her work, and really hone it in for a musical performance. So we excerpted that poem very lovingly and carefully. That's what we really collaborated on first, was getting the poem put in a way that made sense to the 5 composers, so that we could then go off in our corners and write our individual pieces. And we worked together throughout the whole process to make sure that we were kind of paying attention to each other's pieces, what piece was coming before mine or after. Was there any tempi or little musical themes or any textures that we could share that might create moments where the music would blend, or what we wanted to avoid was to have it be helter skelter in terms of the feeling of different composers' music. So
Well, you mentioned you say that, and I can't help but mention that some performances at Big Ears are all about helter skelter.
right, that's not always bad. But we really
uh,
wanted to create a piece that was completely thought through as a concert work, that was composed, in the sense that we're 5 brains working as one.
mhm. And and the idea of how that works just kind of melts my one brain. Was this over? How often did you need to be in the same place for this to happen? We just came out of this, well, sort of came out of this, pandemic thing where a lot of people have learned to do exactly what we're doing right now. And when
Yeah.
it comes to sort of assembling this group of creatives, how did you all find that it was best to work together?
Well, of course, we did rely a lot on technology because we don't all live in the same area. We initially came together to make sure that we were all connecting, in the same place. So members of A Far Cry and the five composers got together at Sarah's house. I think that was the summer of 2016. We'd already sort of chosen the poetry and begun the project, but we got together. We had wonderful long conversations and dinners and lunch together. And then the composers had a slumber party that night, the next night, to really dig in and get started. And then we all went home and we worked remotely from there on, really, because we just don't, it's just not that practical to all be in the same place at the same time. But we would work on a Google Doc to help edit the text and to share ideas. Like I said, we did want to work individually on our individual music pieces, but we would share those with each other. Shara made demos early on and shared those with us. So we all, we just made an effort to constantly check in and share where we were with thoughts and make changes together. It was very collaborative up through the very end of editing the record. Shara and I produced the record together, and so it's been a super amazing collaboration for years now. And we're really, really excited to have the recording out and to have these performances coming up with Shara performing the roles too.
That's Rachel Grimes on the line here. The performance is at Big Ears. It's here. It's something I love about Big Ears is they're like, I feel like every festival or convention ever, if they say it's 3 days, that the last day it's over at noon. Not Big Ears. No, no, no.
Ooh.
Sunday goes
we're
late.
bringing up career there on Sunday night at 8. Yes.
I think
at the
7
Theater.
p.m., 7 or 8 p.m. And
Mhm.
yeah. So and that's like the last night of the festival. So so anyway, I know. Well, we've got a little snippet here to play, and I'm so glad. I was afraid I was going to forget it, but we've got something. This is called a memory. And I love Rachel.
Mhm.
Asked Rachel to send me a short clip from the piece, and I think that you won the championship on that. You sent me a 1 minute and 16-second clip. Well
I
done.
can do short.
So
Yeah,
check
this
this out.
piece, this is like a glimpse early on in the work to a longer work called The Name. So this is one that I wrote, and then it's referenced later in the piece in a longer, but I figured that might work for you. A short clip.
Let's check it out. We'll be right back with Rachel Grimes.
A memory through which one hasn't lived, a message deflected by other messages, a message from a secret cell.
A city 1,000 years, a city shaken and snowing, a coin of moonlight on the shattered place, a confusion of birds and fishes, a consciousness not within us, a corpse broken into many countries, a cup.
Oops, sorry, I may have snipped off the end there. Sorry about that. That is a memory. We're here with Rachel Grimes, one of the composers of that. Or is that all? Is that you? I know it's you're setting the libretto, but is that yours or is that a collaboration?
That music and that piece is what I wrote. So that's
Okay.
I sent you that so I could speak about that.
Yeah.
So we pretty much followed that for most of the 40 tracks on the record because it was the only practical way to do it. But we were sharing ideas with each other. So we kind of knew what we each were doing with the musical themes. But yeah, that was my music, and Shara singing.
Yeah. So that is congratulations. By the way, I was when I was listening to that, I was thinking about how does it feel as a composer who is, I think, mostly comes from the perspective of you've spent many years as a performer. So is it strange to hear your music performed by other people, where you're just sitting there kind of doing the evil genius kind of finger tap?
Yes, it can be very trippy, especially when it's a piano piece, because I'm usually the one playing the piano. But of course, I've spent now, 30 years creating, string parts and, brass or vocal parts or other ensemble parts for others. So I'm used to hearing that, because I don't play strings, but I've my life's work is to get to where I can understand how to write for them anyway. I may not be able to play them well, but I hopefully can write for them. The most fun is actually to have that experience of hearing someone else play a part I would have played. In fact, can I do a little quick pitch? Because I just realized that
sure.
the same day, on Sunday, Sunday, the April 2nd, in Lexington at the Julietta Market, the Lexington Philharmonic has a small chamber music group that's performing at the market at 1:00. And pianist Keith McCutcheon is playing the piano part in the clearing, which also has violin, viola, and cello. And I can't be there because I'll be at Beers. It never happens. These things are happening on the same day. But I would so love it because it's so fun to hear someone else, interpret the music you've written. So, hey, so for those that are in Lexington on that Sunday, go out to Julietta Market, 1 p.m.
Those who are not going to Big Ears, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. Thank you so much for visiting with us, Rachel.
Thanks for having me, Mick. So good to see you. I guess I'll see you there at the festival. Are you going for all the whole 4 days?
Absolutely. I'll have to be dragged
Excellent.
Away. You'll find me wherever the nearest long form drone composition is where I'll be.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah, I'll be all over the place. So I'll keep my eyes out for you.
Thanks so much. So good to talk to you. See you there.
Absolutely. That's Rachel Grimes, the composer pianist, who, I'm going to throw this up on the screen one more time from the Big Ears website. This is you and your stuff and your thing, the Sharanova and Knoxville Symphony Orchestra, the Blue Hour. Yeah. Okay. Thanks again, Rachel. We're going to take a super quick break. Absolutely. We're going to take a super quick break here and come back with Natasha Collier of the Lexington Games for Good. Very short break here, so stay tuned. We will be back in just a second here. Also, Stoner Creek Shakedown